Hi friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I'm so excited to have you here because I am a guest for Show Us Your Sheet Load of Cards with Call Me Crafty Owl. It's like a dream come true. It's also in October, which is my birthday month, so this is a fun surprise and way to celebrate. I am going to walk you through my supplies in just a minute. I wanted to give you the details on how you can see other designers with the Show Us Your Sheet Load sketch. You can find that playlist down below in my description box. So make sure you watch everybody's videos to see how they adapted the sketch for this month. Also, if you're like, what is Show Us Your Sheet Load sketch? You can find Call Me Crafty Owl's video also in my description where you can find out how to download this awesome sketch that I'm using to create your own set of cards and also just learn about how you can play along every month. Okay, so jumping into my supplies, I'm using Papertrey Inc.'s North Pole Mail stamp set and coordinating dies, as well as their North Pole Mail postage stamp frame and postcard die, which are these really fun, they look like big postage stamps. I love them. So I'm going to use those products on my card today. My cardstock is very old, or my pattern paper, I should say, is very old, and it is from Fawn Peace, Joy, Love Petite Paper Pack. I am a hoarder of pattern paper, and that is one thing I love about Show Us Your Sheet Load is that I challenge myself to use that pattern paper up, and it also just gives me a really good starting point on a fun different sketch every month, and then I take it and tweak it as needed to fit maybe something that I would like more or more my style. So I am not going to go through the dimensions of anything because you can find that on the Sheet Load sketch, which again is on Call Me Crafty Owl's YouTube channel, but I will talk about what I changed and adapted it to make it my own and to make these cards today. So instead of having a colorful card base or a background A2 piece on my card base, I went ahead and die cut out of some craft cardstock the largest North Pole Mail postage stamp die. Now I did follow the sketch for my white cardstock piece, and I don't like the way that it covered the details of my stamp. I was going to be fine with it, but the more I looked at it, the more I wish I could see all of the details in the stamp. So I went ahead and trimmed down my white cardstock piece 3/4 of an inch. So for those following along at home with the sketch, that is my CS1. So I went ahead and trimmed off all of that white paper from that original CS1 dimension, and then I added my paper strips, and that is my PPA and PPB, C, and D. And instead of having kind of the same distance on the edges of the paper strips, so in between the paper strips, I just condensed that. There's only a small sliver of white cardstock peeking through between my paper strips. And again, those are cut to dimensions that you can find on this month's sketch sheet load from Call Me Crafty Owl. So now I'm going to jump into stamping. So I have my strips on my white cardstock. I was going to start gluing these down to my craft postage stamps, but then I remembered that I needed to do some more trimming. So I'm going to stamp all of my images. I'm starting with the large kind of belt piece, which is in a brown ink, and that is Fallen Leaves VersaFine Clair. I'm also stamping the small Santa face. I really wanted to do the big one, but I think it was just going to be too overwhelming for my card. I wanted room for a sentiment, and I didn't think I'd have enough space for that. I also did kind of that candy cane stripe in red, which is Tulip Red VersaFine Clair. It also reminds me of, you know, the stamps that you see on postcards that are like the cancellation stamps. I also stamped the belt buckle, which I think is really cool. It's its own separate stamp out of some golden Meadow VersaFine Clair. It kind of has a bit more of a greenish-y tint to it. So I was trying to bring in as much green as I could to match the pattern paper. I went ahead and used the coordinating dies to cut them all out, and now I'm going to play around with the design to figure out how I can add these extra strips into the card design. I decided that I like the red and white stripe on the bottom with the belt going across it, and then I thought I would kind of balance that out by adding that candy cane stripe across the top, overlapping the green holly pattern paper. So before I get to gluing down anything else, I wanted to get my sentiment stamped. So instead of having that banner across the middle, I am going to just stamp right into that open spot on my white cardstock. So I'm stamping Santa is Coming, which I think is so cute. I love the scripty font. And that was my head peeking over and realizing that I didn't even bother to make sure that my sentiment was straight. So I'm going to fix that. It's okay that it's a little crooked. I actually kind of like it looking at it now as I'm editing. It feels very much like it's handwritten because it's just kind of across like that. But the rest of them will be stamped a little more straight. And I did that in the same brown ink, the Fallen Leaves at VersaFine Clair. After that, I'm going to work on adding the strips. These are just like extra details, and I'm adding on top of my paper strips from the sketch. And I'm using my 1/8 of an inch foam adhesive behind that candy cane stripe. So I'm going to add the foam to the back, and I'm making it slightly larger than the width of my white cardstock. And that's so I know that it will be attached from end to end before I trim it off. So I'll go ahead and peel off that release paper, and then I'm going to layer it on that green cardstock along kind of the bottom of the paper strip. And then I turned it over, and I'm trimming off the excess of that strip. I kind of wish I could have fit two with one strip just to reduce my waste and stamping, but they didn't fit. Then for the belt buckle, I'm going to use some wider foam adhesive. It's a little bit larger than a 1/2 inch, but I just had a 1/4 inch foam and 1 inch. So I'm going to use 2 strips of my 1/4 inch foam. Again, trying to make it just slightly wider than my white cardstock so I know the foam will be from edge to edge once I trim it down. So I have my belt buckle ready to go, and I'm going to add that across the middle of my red and white stripe. I just thought it gave a very Santa coat feel on that side. So I'll stick it down so the belt buckle looks centered, and then I will trim off the excess paper just like I did for the first strip. I'll repeat that for all of my layouts, and then I will glue it to the center of my craft cardstock. So just using some sturdy adhesive, I'll follow the details of the die, this kind of like little perforated dots all around, and I'm going to use that as a guide to help me get this panel centered onto my card, or my card front. After all of those are done, I'm going to jump into watercoloring my Santa faces. So I'm going to grab my distress watercolor pencils. I'm just spraying a little bit of water on my glass board and then using a paintbrush to apply water to the watercolor pencil and painting my Santa Clauses. So I started with adding gray to the beard of one of my Santas. So you can see here, just adding it as like a shadow to still give a white beard feel. And same with the little puffy parts of his hat. So just adding it as shadow, not really fully coloring anything. Next, I'm taking dried marigold to add in kind of a peachy skin tone for this first Santa. I will bring in other colors later. And then I brought in candied apple to be the red hat. And I think if I didn't say the color, the gray that I used was Lost Shadow. For my other Santas, I'm using, I believe, Vintage Photo for my more tan friendly Santas. And then for my black Santas, I'm using Walnut Stain. Again, just trying to get different skin tones into my Santas. I just like having variation since we don't know the skin tone of Santa. After I finished with adding in my different skin colors, I did the hats as well. Again, that same red. And finally, I'm going to finish up by adding that Lost Shadow in the gray of all the beards. To keep those Santas in place while I was coloring, I just used a large piece of low tack tape. This is the 4-inch wide tape from scrapbook.com. I like using that for small pieces to make sure they don't move while I'm coloring. Next, I'm taking some foam adhesive. My 2 strips that I added that were stamped, I used a 1mm foam adhesive. This time I'm using a 2mm foam adhesive. I want my Santa to really pop up off the card. After I add all those Santas, I'm going to go ahead and start gluing these card fronts to my card bases. These are A2 in size out of some sturdy white cardstock, and they are top folding. That's just my favorite type of card to make, but you can definitely adapt this into a side folding card as well. Once those were all done, I wanted to add a little bit of glitter because I don't know how to not add something shiny to my card. So I'm adding some pops of color in a champagne glitter. I did 3 little dots to the left above my kind of candy stripe that I added, and then 3 little dots to the right on the green holly pattern paper. You can see them here. To dome them out so they don't look like Hershey Kisses, I just tap on the back and you can see that they look a little bit more like enamel dots. Here's a close-up of my 6 cards. I hope you like my take on the October Show Us Your SheetLoad sketch. Again, you can find the playlist to watch the rest of the designers down below in my description, or you can head over to Call Me Crafty Al's channel to learn how you can get a copy of the SheetLoad sketch as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!